Mrs. Hughes going to find love? I want her to.
Do you?
I do.
What?
Her and Carson, maybe.
Everybody says that.
Well, you're always sitting there drinking the wine with him late at night. No one else is around.
Well, maybe we should have just one too many and see where that leads.
Right, Carson with benefits.
I mean, it was seen as a very good job. You weren't allowed to get married. The butler wasn't allowed to get married. The housekeeper wasn't allowed to get married. So Mrs. Hughes, the housekeeper, wasn't married, but she was called Mrs. Hughes.
But you could have a mate, kind of.
I'm not Tom Jones. No.
Maybe Mrs. Hughes and Carson would
You don't
be
think they're a bit
perfect
over
match.
the hill, a wee bit?
You're never too over the hill.
No.
Not at all.
Don't you think people would be going,
No, I think they'd see it as the most lovely, perfect match.
I love shooting the scenes with Mrs. Hughes, Carson and Mrs. Hughes. Will Carson get together with Mrs. Hughes? Oh no, I didn't say that.
So many people really like the idea of Mr. Carson and Mrs. Hughes getting it together. But I don't know, wouldn't that spoil it a bit? Because I think, I don't know. The jury's out on this one for me still.
Carson and Mrs. Hughes getting together, people want it.
Yeah, I love Mr. Carson.
Hi, I'm a great fan and I adore you all, but I have what I consider to be the most important question. So for Julian or Phyllis, when are we going to see something develop between Mrs. Hughes and Mr. Carson?
Okay. Obviously, I'm not going to answer this. But I'm really pleased that you have their interests at heart. I think they have a very charming relationship. I think they're much more emotionally dependent on each other than they realise.
Is that right? Yeah.
And I think it's lovely. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I'm very encouraged that so many people are interested in, because everybody's all loved up, all the youngsters downstairs and upstairs. Well, apart from Edith. Sorry, Laura. But you know, it's encouraging to know that people still have an interest in middle-aged to,
but what will
Twilight
become of
years
Beryl?
type love. What?
What will become of Beryl?
Beryl Patmore.
Cop off.
Beryl Patmore.
Just be jealous. Mosley. Oh, yeah, there you go. Come on, I dare you.
But if I get my trousers wet,
If you get them wet, we'll dry them.
suppose I fall over.
Suppose a bomb goes off. Suppose we're hit by a falling star. You can hold my hand. Then we'll both go in together.
I think I will hold your hand. It'll make me feel a bit steadier.
You can always hold my hand if you need to feel steady.
I don't know how, but you managed to make that sound a little risque.
And if I did? We're getting on, Mr. Carson, you and I. We can afford to live a little.